It's the GCN Racing News Show. This week our focus is on the Giro d'Italia, which is now on its second rest day. We take a look at the opening stage of the Tour of California. There's a stunning performance from Andre Greipel at the 6-day-long 4 days of Dunkirk, and the conclusion of the Panorama Guizhou International Women's Road Cycling Race. Oh, and we also take a dip into Berlin for the unofficial fixed gear World Championships, the Rad Race Fixed42. Where do we even start, though, with the Giro d'Italia? There have been some incredibly exciting stages over the last week. We've had Sam Bennett taking his first Grand Tour stage win into Praia Amare, which was the first Irish stage win at the Giro for 31 years. Then the first ever Ecuadorian win at any Grand Tour with Richard Carapaz on stage 8. A well-executed and well-timed acceleration which saw Tim Wellens take the first stage back on Italian soil on stage 4. And Enrico Battaglin proving too good for everybody else on stage 5. However, the main story of the week has been the rise of Mitchelton Scott and the fall, quite literally, of Chris Froome. The Australian team have not put a single foot wrong, whilst Froome seemingly hasn't been able to put a single foot right. On stage 6 to Mount Etna, a group of 28 riders disappeared up the road, and somehow Esteban Chaves managed to slip into it. A man who, let's not forget, finished runner-up at this race just 2 years ago. And he managed to cling on to win the stage, just ahead of his teammate Simon Yates, who'd come across at warp speed from the group of favourites that he just dropped like stones. A stage win for Chaves, the pink jersey for Yates. Doesn't get much better than that for a team. Meanwhile, for Froome, things have been going from bad to worse. After crashing before that opening time trial and losing time there, he then crashed again on stage 8. This time on a climb, believe it or not. And although he didn't lose time there, he did lose a big chunk the following day to the Gran Sasso d'Italia. Dropped inside the last couple of kilometres, he then struggled to even keep up with his teammates, who shepherded him to the line, conceding over a minute to the stage winner. And that stage winner was Simon Yates, taking 10 seconds bonus in the process. It meant that the Brit took a 32-second advantage into the second rest day, an advantage which he holds over his teammate Esteban Chaves, with last year's winner Tom Dumoulin third at 38 seconds. It's a dream start for Mitchelton Scott, who couldn't in their wildest dreams have imagined that this would be where they sit after 9 days of racing. I'd like to know what they're having for breakfast, to be perfectly honest. In fact, I do know, thanks to Emma.
Weetabix, every day.
Awesome!
On the other hand, it's been a bit of a nightmare for Froome, and you've got to say that his chances of doing the triple have been almost completely extinguished already. Dumoulin remains threatening though, and it's going to be a fascinating battle over the next week as the pure climbers will have to try everything they can to put time into him before the individual time trial that comes at the start of the final week of racing. What was interesting was the Velon comparison of data for the climbers up that climb to Gran Sasso d'Italia versus Dumoulin, who is far heavier of course. 350 watts for Chaves, 360 for Bennett, 370 for Pozzovivo, and then a huge 420 watts for Dumoulin over the last 9 minutes of the climb. No wonder he thunders along on the time trials. The race resumes tomorrow, Tuesday, with the longest stage of the race at 239 kilometres. Meanwhile, over on the other side of the Atlantic, the Tour of California started on Sunday. The 8-day race is now part of the World Tour calendar, and it's attracted some big stars, particularly on the sprinter side of things. And we got to see those guys battling it out, in fact, on the very first stage. Quick-Step Floors provided a slick lead out to Long Beach for Fernando Gaviria, who just about managed to stay on his teammates' wheels despite a couple of shoulder barges from the young sprinter Jasper Philipsen. Caleb Ewan almost got on terms with the Colombian, but Gaviria was just too fast in the end, taking Quick-Step's 30th victory of the season so far. Ewan was second, Sagan third, and Kittel, who was ruining the fact that he didn't hold his teammate's wheel, came fourth. Mark Cavendish pretty much freewheeled across the line in 10th, clearly not quite back to his best just yet. The 4 days of Dunkirk saw the return from injury of Andre Greipel, who broke his collarbone back at Milan-San Remo, and also a return to form. The big German sprinter won a bunch sprint on day 2, which marked his 150th career win, but then on stage 5, he went rogue, taking the stage from a strong solo move. Now you might think that this is pretty much unheard of for the sprinter, but he has done this before on the Queen stage of the Tour de Luxembourg no less, back in 2014. He's pretty blooming strong, that's for sure. There was an interesting graph from cycling_vision on Twitter of which teammate has been by Greipel's side through his 150 career wins. Marcel Seberg playing a big part in an astonishing 103. Friends for life, I think it's safe to say there. There was an important victory for Nacer Bouhanni on stage 3. It's been a torrid season for the Frenchman so far, with public criticism from his team, and he was also reported recently by L'Equipe to have been involved in a physical altercation with his DS Roberto Damiani after the recent Eschborn-Frankfurt race. Bouhanni was quick to thank his teammates and everybody that stood by him after his first win of the season. Brian Cockard also took a stage win, but the overall was taken through some consistent riding by Dimitri Claes, 30-year-old Belgian, who also rides for Cofidis. Thanks to Cavan Downs for pointing out to me how to pronounce the next race's name, the Panorama Guizhou International Women's Road Cycling Race. Spanish champion Sheila Gutierrez won the first stage there, which we reported on last week, and that was basically the way that things would stand until the end of the 5 days, Gutierrez taking the overall win by 10 seconds. 21-year-old Yumi Kajihara won 3 stages in bunch sprints, whilst Daniela Gas went full pretty much every day in the end, finishing inside the top 6 on every stage, netting herself second place in the overall classification. Now, you may remember the Rad race from a few weeks ago here on the GCN Racing News Show. Well, on Sunday, their latest event was the Fixed42, which is often seen as the unofficial fixed gear World Championships. There were 650 riders from 30 nations taking part, and they went brakeless in Berlin for the event, which is run over a marathon distance, taking the final 42 Ks at the Velothon Berlin, with the finish in the heart of the capital. It was fast from the gun, as I guess you'd expect on a German autobahn, but it wasn't until they reached Tempelhof Airport that a breakaway finally went clear. There are a few riders going up the road from the Canyon Radpack 8-bar team, Messpack Berlin, and also Cinelli team. In the end, Nico Heslick and Fritz Ferner got away, but with around 5 Ks to go, Heslick gave it an extra nudge and came through for victory, at an average speed of 46.7 Ks per hour. Pretty nuts for a fixed gears race. In the women's event, there was a 3-up breakaway of Georgia Frigari, Nicola Mertz and Carla Sommer, and it came down to a sprint amongst the 3 of them. It was 22-year-old Frigari in the end who proved to be the fastest, and she celebrated with a beer after the race, which looked like it had a fantastic atmosphere. Up next for the Rad Race series is a big sprint race in the heart of Hamburg in August, and then a stage race from Munich to Venice in September. Right, that is all for this week's show. Next week we'll be back recapping week 2 of the Giro d'Italia, the rest of the Tour of California, both the men's and the women's, and the Tour of Norway as well. Oh, let us know if you're participating anywhere a little bit different this coming weekend. If we can get some footage of it, we might well put it into the end of next week's show. Let us know in the comment section down below. In the meantime, if you would like to know what the rest of the riders at the Giro d'Italia have for breakfast, Emma asked a few of them, and you can find that video just down here. Oh, and a quick reminder, we've still got a few of these t-shirts for sale at shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com.